Amara sat in the sunlit garden of the Hale mansion, gently rubbing her 7-month pregnant belly as she waited for Leonard to join her for breakfast, a routine they once cherished. The morning breeze carried the scent of roses, the same ones Leonard planted years ago to celebrate their wedding. She believed their marriage was still grounded in love, soft gestures, shared laughter, and long conversations about their future baby. Yet lately, something inside her felt unsettled, like a quiet storm building beneath a calm sky. She tried to ignore it, repeating to herself that stress was normal during pregnancy, that Leonard was simply busy expanding his business empire, and that everything would return to normal once the baby arrived. But deep down, she knew routines didn't just fade without reason. Leonard's behavior had shifted in ways she couldn't explain. He was constantly glued to his phone, typing rapidly and smiling at messages he never shared with her. His late-night meetings multiplied, and when Amara asked if everything was all right, he brushed her off with a quick kiss on her forehead and a vague excuse about urgent investors. He had also started leaving for last-minute business trips that never appeared on his official schedule. Amara noticed how he avoided looking her directly in the eyes, as if guilt or discomfort lingered behind his forced smiles. Every night, she would lay awake beside an empty side of the bed, feeling an ache she couldn't soothe. Even the house staff, people who once adored her, began acting strangely. They avoided eye contact, whispered among themselves, and quickly changed the subject when she walked into a room. The warmth of the household had faded, replaced by an uncomfortable silence that followed her everywhere she went. Amara felt isolated inside her own home, sensing that everyone knew something she didn't. One evening, while passing Leonard's office, she heard his low whisper through the door. She paused, heart pounding. "She'll be gone soon," he murmured into the phone. The words stung her like ice. "Gone? Who?" Her breathing grew shallow as she stepped back quietly, afraid to hear more. Anxiety washed over her, twisting her stomach. That night, unable to sleep, she remembered her father's words, "If life ever cracks open, look for the door." For the first time, she feared those cracks had already begun spreading through her perfect life, and she didn't know what she would find on the other side. Leonard arrived home one afternoon with an unfamiliar brightness in his eyes, the kind Amara hadn't seen directed at her in months. When the front door opened, he stepped aside, revealing a tall, breathtakingly beautiful young woman with flawless makeup, glossy hair, and the confidence of someone who believed the world revolved around her. "This is Sierra," Leonard announced casually, "a 23-year-old model who's going to help with some charity campaigns." His tone was too smooth, too rehearsed, and Amara felt a cold shiver run through her as Sierra flashed a sugary smile that didn't reach her eyes. Charity campaigns? Since when did his charity events require a live-in model? From the moment Sierra stepped inside, she behaved as if she already owned the mansion. She strutted through the living room, trailing her perfectly manicured nails over the furniture, then dropped herself onto the armchair that had always been Amara's favorite spot. Without hesitation, she rang the little bell on the side table and instructed the house staff to bring her sparkling water, specifying the brand Leonard always bought for Amara. The staff hesitated, glancing nervously at Amara before rushing to obey, clearly intimidated. Amara swallowed her hurt, forcing herself to stay calm for the baby. Later, when Amara confronted Leonard privately, hoping for reassurance or even a simple explanation, he didn't offer comfort. Instead, he sighed as if she were a burden and said, "You're too emotional because of the pregnancy. Don't create drama." The dismissiveness in his voice stung worse than any accusation. As if to deepen the wound, Sierra re-entered the room wearing a diamond necklace Amara had never seen before, one Leonard clearly bought her. She casually tossed a designer handbag onto the couch and giggled about their little shopping trip. When Amara's eyes filled with tears, Leonard lifted a warning finger. "Don't overreact. You'll stress the baby." The blame slid neatly from his mouth, placing all wrongdoing on her shoulders. Amara felt herself slowly suffocating under the weight of his manipulation. The breaking point came when she overheard Sierra whispering to a friend near the balcony. "I'll move in soon. He said his wife is almost out." The confidence in her voice, the certainty, confirmed everything. This wasn't a sudden affair. It was planned. and she was the obstacle they were preparing to push aside. Leonard entered the bedroom without knocking, his expression hardened, a stack of documents gripped tightly in his hand. Amara sat on the edge of the bed, her swollen belly resting beneath her palms, trying to steady her breathing. Without a word of sympathy, Leonard dropped the papers beside her. "Sign these," he demanded. She looked down and felt her chest constrict. The title read Separation Agreement. Her eyes darted to the line stating she must vacate the mansion within 24 hours. Her voice trembled as she asked, "Leonard, what is this?" He exhaled impatiently as if the question annoyed him. "Your pregnancy has ruined my life. You've become clingy, emotional, impossible. I need space. You're holding me back." His words felt like a slap, cold and final. Then Amara noticed movement behind him. Sierra stepped into the room, leaning casually against the doorframe with a smug smile, twirling a strand of her glossy hair. In her hand, she held Amara's wedding photo, the one from their happiest day, framed in silver. She traced Leonard's face with her finger in a way that sent chills through Amara. The message was clear: she was replacing her. Amara reached for the frame, but Sierra pulled it back, her smirk widening. Leonard didn't object. In fact, he stepped closer to Sierra as if claiming her openly. When Amara refused to sign immediately, Leonard snapped his fingers. 2 security guards appeared in the doorway, their expressions apologetic but firm. "Escort her out," Leonard ordered. There was no hesitation, no compassion, just cold resolve. Amara pleaded desperately, clutching her belly. "Please. I need time. I'm 7 months pregnant. I have nowhere to go." Her voice cracked, but Leonard turned away as if her suffering inconvenienced him. "Not my problem," he muttered. The guards allowed her only a few minutes to gather what she could. She stuffed clothes into a small suitcase with shaking hands. The only items she truly cherished, the last things from her father, were tucked into a small wooden box she held to her chest. She was ushered toward the front door, her dignity stripped away, her heart breaking with every step. Just as she reached the threshold, Sierra leaned in close, her perfume strong and sickly sweet. "Don't worry," she whispered with venomous triumph, "I'll take good care of your husband and your house." The door slammed behind Amara, leaving her standing on the cold driveway, trembling. Tears blurred her vision as she sank onto the pavement, clutching the box from her father. In that crushing moment, her father's voice echoed in her memory. "Never underestimate what I left you." She didn't understand it yet, but those words were the only thing keeping her from falling apart completely. The motel room was small, dim, and smelled faintly of old carpet, but it was all Amara could afford after being thrown out. Exhausted, she sat on the creaky bed and pulled her father's wooden box onto her lap. Her hands trembled slightly as she lifted the lid, remembering how he used to guard this box like it held the world's most precious secret. Inside, instead of jewelry or documents, lay a single rusty black card. It had no bank name, no logo, nothing but a faint metallic sheen. Beside it lay a folded note in her father's handwriting. She unfolded it slowly, tears stinging her eyes as she read the simple message: "When the world turns its back on you, try this." Amara exhaled shakily. What could a decades-old card possibly do for her now? It looked more like a worn-out souvenir than something useful. She assumed it was just her father's sentimental keepsake, something he carried for personal meaning, not function. She placed it back into the box, feeling defeated. She had more urgent concerns: food, safety, and the baby growing inside her. By the next day, her cash had dwindled to almost nothing. Her stomach twisted painfully as she wandered into a tiny convenience store, hoping to stretch her last few coins. Standing at the counter with bread and a bottle of water, she hesitated, then pulled out the strange card. "It probably won't work," she whispered to herself. But desperation made her bold. The cashier frowned at the old card, turning it over twice before reluctantly swiping it. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the register beeped. "Transaction approved." Before Amara could react, her phone buzzed violently in her pocket. She pulled it out and froze at the message on the screen. "Welcome, primary beneficiary." Her breath caught. Beneficiary of what? How did the card connect to her phone? A nervous chill crawled up her spine. Whatever this card was, it was definitely not normal. The next morning, still shaken by the strange message on her phone, Amara followed the notification's location to a discreet financial institution in the city, a building she had passed countless times without noticing. The moment she stepped inside, the atmosphere shifted. A receptionist glanced at the black card in her hand, her expression tightening with recognition. Without asking any questions, she stood and said, "Right this way, ma'am," her tone respectful, almost nervous. Amara's heart pounded as she was escorted through security doors and down a quiet hallway to a private office furnished with dark wood and expensive art. The bank manager, an older man with silver hair and a calm demeanor, rose to greet her. "Mrs. Hale," he said softly, "we've been expecting your arrival ever since the primary beneficiary alert was triggered." She stared at him, completely lost. He gestured for her to sit and then placed the black card on the table between them. "Your father," he began, "was part of an elite, hidden syndicate, individuals who controlled wealth not visible to public markets. He owned assets, shares, and private accounts spread across multiple countries. This card grants you access to all of them." Amara gasped, unable to fully absorb the revelation. The manager continued, explaining that her father deliberately kept this fortune hidden so she would grow with values shaped by love and integrity, not wealth. He believed character should come before privilege, he said. And he trusted that when you truly needed it, you would know. As he spoke, he opened a secure digital ledger on the screen. The sheer number of accounts, investments, and figures made Amara dizzy. She had just become wealthier than Leonard had ever dreamed of being. Tears filled her eyes as she realized her father had been protecting her even in death. He had seen a future she never imagined and prepared her for it. She closed her fingers around the card, feeling its weight differently now, not as a mystery, but as a lifeline. She left the bank with a steady breath, her heart no longer trembling. She didn't want revenge, not yet. But she finally had the power to choose how her story continued, and she vowed to use it wisely. With access to her father's hidden wealth, Amara moved quickly to rebuild her life from the ground up. The first thing she bought was a safe, warm apartment in a secure building, nothing extravagant, just a place where she could sleep without fear. She hired a discreet security team to watch the building and escort her to appointments, something she never imagined needing but now felt grateful for. For the first time in weeks, she locked the door behind her and felt genuinely protected. She scheduled every medical checkup she had been forced to delay. Her new doctor treated her with kindness and urgency, ensuring she received proper nutrition, vitamins, and rest. She began therapy as well, pouring out all the things she had bottled up, the manipulation, the loneliness, the humiliation of being thrown out while carrying a child. Each session peeled back a layer of pain, replacing it with the steady rebuilding of her self-worth. Leonard had denied her these simple necessities, but now she was giving herself everything she deserved. With each passing day, Amara felt her confidence returning. She spent hours exploring the files connected to her father's businesses, understanding the companies he owned, the people he trusted, and the investments he built. She realized she wasn't just wealthy, she was powerful. She belonged to a world Leonard didn't even know existed. But even as she grew stronger, reminders of her old life appeared on her phone. Sierra had taken over the mansion, flaunting Amara's former lifestyle online, posing in her closet mirror, wearing expensive dresses, and tagging Leonard in lavish dinners. Then came the video of Leonard and Sierra raising champagne glasses, celebrating their freedom and new beginning. Comments praised them without knowing the truth. Amara watched the clip in silence. No tears. No panic. No anger. Just strategy. Her next move wasn't about revenge, it was about reclaiming everything that was taken from her, this time with purpose and precision. A few days after settling into her new apartment, Amara received a discreet visit from her father's trusted lawyer, Mr. Whitaker. He arrived quietly, closing the door behind him and placing a leather briefcase on the polished table. "Amara," he began, his voice grave, "there's something you need to know, something urgent." Amara's heart skipped, a mix of fear and anticipation coursing through her. Whitaker opened the case, revealing stacks of documents, spreadsheets, and encrypted files. "Leonard hasn't just betrayed you emotionally," he said, his eyes locked on hers. "He's been using your name and your charitable reputation to launder money." Amara's hands trembled as she sifted through the evidence. Leonard had created multiple fake charity accounts, funneling millions through shell organizations while keeping the money for himself. Donations that were supposed to help the needy were siphoned into offshore accounts, hidden in complex financial trails. Her stomach twisted in disgust. And worse, Sierra, smiling, glamorous, and seemingly naive, was an active participant, knowingly helping Leonard cover his tracks. This wasn't merely a personal betrayal, it was a criminal exploitation of her identity. With her father's black card in her hand, Amara gained unprecedented access to the networks Leonard had tried to manipulate. She opened encrypted files, scanned private accounts, and traced investments across borders. Every detail that had been hidden from the public, and from her, was now at her fingertips. The magnitude of Leonard's deception became clear, and for the first time, Amara felt a surge of empowerment replacing her previous fear. Determined to act carefully, she assembled a team of the best investigators, forensic accountants, and lawyers, people Leonard could never intimidate or bribe. Each expert confirmed the depth of the fraud and the undeniable evidence linking both Leonard and Sierra to criminal activity. Standing alone in her apartment that evening, Amara held the black card tightly, a quiet smile forming. She whispered softly, almost to herself, "You threw me out, but you threw out your shield too." She realized Leonard's arrogance and underestimation had given her the advantage. Now, she held the power, the evidence, and the strategy to reclaim everything he had tried to steal from her. Amara knew the most powerful weapon wasn't confrontation, it was exposure. Carefully, she prepared a packet of irrefutable evidence, documents, bank statements, screenshots of encrypted emails, and detailed financial trails proving Leonard's involvement in charity fraud, tax evasion, and large-scale money laundering. Using anonymous channels, she sent the package to major media outlets and investigative journalists, ensuring her identity remained completely hidden. Within hours, the world began to notice. The headlines erupted across newspapers, websites, and social media. Billionaire Leonard Hale accused of massive fraud, charity scandal rocks elite circle, wealthy businessman exploits wife's name for criminal gain. Leonard, once untouchable, was suddenly the face of corruption overnight. Investors pulled out of deals, fearing association with his crumbling empire. Business partners began distancing themselves immediately, sending frantic emails and calls to legal teams. The stock value of his companies plummeted, and the public perception he had cultivated for years evaporated in days. Sierra, sensing the danger, tried desperately to separate herself from Leonard, posting vague apologies on social media and claiming ignorance. But her name was firmly embedded in the leaked files, there was no denying her involvement. Each attempt to evade scrutiny only made the evidence stronger against her. Leonard, frustrated and panicked, recorded a desperate viral video pleading with the public, "Someone is framing me. This is all lies." But the proof was overwhelming, leaving no room for manipulation. Amara watched silently from her apartment, her arms crossed, her expression calm. No shouts, no tears, no panic, just a steady, quiet satisfaction. She didn't celebrate the downfall, she observed it, appreciating the precision of her plan. Leonard had underestimated her, underestimating her intelligence, her resources, and her resolve. Now, as his empire began to crumble piece by piece, she realized she was finally in control, witnessing the consequences of his arrogance while remaining safely untouchable herself. The day of the court hearing arrived, and Amara stepped into the towering courthouse with a calmness she had never known in the months prior. Her steps were measured, her back straight, and her expression serene, radiating the quiet confidence of someone who had endured betrayal and emerged stronger. Gone was the frightened, powerless woman who had been thrown out of her own home. In her place stood a woman in command of her destiny, supported by her father's hidden fortune and her own determination. Leonard sat at the defense table, his mouth falling open when he saw her enter. Shock rippled across his face, disbelief evident in the furrow of his brow. Beside him, Sierra attempted to appear composed, her signature sunglasses hiding the panic in her eyes. She had thought this day would never come, that their carefully constructed lives would remain hidden. But Amara's presence, calm and unshakable, set the tone for what was about to unfold. Amara's lawyers, a team of the city's finest, presented evidence meticulously compiled from her father's inheritance card. Every document, financial trail, and encrypted communication was laid bare, leaving no room for doubt. Screens displayed Leonard's fraudulent charity accounts, tax evasion, and money laundering schemes, all meticulously documented. The judge listened intently, reviewing each file, before taking decisive action. With a firm gavel, he ordered Leonard's accounts frozen, properties secured, and business shares temporarily suspended to prevent further damage. Panic swept over Leonard as he realized the magnitude of his situation. Sierra, seeing the inevitability of her own exposure, quietly slipped out of the courtroom, abandoning Leonard mid-hearing to avoid facing potential prison time herself. Desperation overtook Leonard. He approached Amara privately, his voice shaking. "Please, don't do this. I'll take you back," he pleaded, his arrogance replaced by fear and regret. Amara met his gaze, steady and unyielding. Her voice, calm but firm, cut through the tension. "You already threw me out. Now I'm just walking through the door you opened." Leonard fell silent, understanding for the first time that his choices had consequences far greater than he ever imagined. Meanwhile, Amara stood tall, the embodiment of resilience, strength, and justice. This was not only her victory in court but the beginning of a new chapter, one she would write on her own terms. Months of stress and uncertainty melted away the moment Amara held her newborn daughter for the first time. The baby's cry was strong and healthy, a vibrant declaration of life, and Amara felt a rush of warmth and relief she hadn't known in months. Surrounded by attentive medical professionals who ensured both mother and child were safe and comfortable, she finally allowed herself to breathe. The sterile hospital room felt like a sanctuary rather than a place of fear, filled with soft blankets, the gentle hum of monitors, and the quiet reassurance of people devoted to her well-being. Choosing a name was easier than she thought. She named her daughter Layla, after her late father, the man whose wisdom, foresight, and unwavering love had guided her even from beyond the grave. Every time she looked at her daughter, she saw her father's legacy living on, a living reminder of the protection he had provided. Amara knew that she had been handed not just wealth, but the courage and resources to build a life free from fear. Before she could even show her baby to the world, news arrived that Leonard had been arrested. Authorities acted swiftly, ensuring he would have no access to Amara or Layla. There would be no confrontations, no last-minute regrets, no moments of weakness to exploit. Leonard's empire, his power, and his arrogance could no longer threaten her family. With the security of her fortune and freedom, Amara dedicated part of her wealth to a mission close to her heart. She established maternal shelters across the city, safe havens for abandoned, abused, or neglected pregnant women. Each center offered medical care, emotional support, and training programs to help women regain independence. The public soon recognized Amara as a symbol of resilience and empowerment, celebrating not just her wealth, but her compassion, bravery, and integrity. Late at night, after her daughter slept peacefully in her arms, Amara held the old black card, its edges worn from years of mystery. Whispering softly, she said, "Dad, you saved us twice." She felt his presence in that moment, the quiet confirmation of his foresight and love. Amara cradled Layla against her chest, finally living a life of dignity, power, and freedom. Leonard, meanwhile, would face the consequences of his actions, his betrayal, greed, and cruelty finally brought to justice. And for Amara, the future was hers to shape, strong, secure, and filled with hope.